Cobra, a taco joint on Forest Avenue of Staten Island. This is episode 6 of the Coaches Show Live, where each month we are joined by a CSI coach or administrator to discuss College of Staten Island athletics and much more, all while enjoying some great food. My name is Joseph Foreman. I am your co-host for this month's show. David Pizzuto is behind the camera, bringing you all of the sights and sounds throughout today's episode. And on today's show, we are joined by CSI softball head coach Eric Kraut. Eric, welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Second month in a row, I am joined by a staffer who is newer to the team than I am. You came on after I did. A lot of movement among our staffers since I came on at the College of Staten Island. How exciting has it been to get started?
It's been super exciting. Although I've been here a short period of time, I feel like I've been here a long time, and I mean that in a good way. There's a lot of things been happening, good movement, a lot of transition, just embracing everything right now.
Well, I've been on the team quite a while as a part-time staffer for years. I'm not sure if you knew that. I got my start 4 or 5 years ago on the game day staff, working at the desk and doing some commentary, and finally came on full-time in June, right before you did. So I have been here a bit longer, but it's been a great time for me as well.
So you're kind of like you were kind of in the minors and you got into the pros.
Exactly.
You're not just brand new. You're brand new position, but you had some training ahead of me though.
And I know you have some minor league baseball experience. We'll talk about that a bit later in the show. But I got my promotion to the full-time team. Was very excited about it, and I know you're excited to be with us here on the show and as a part of the team. So we'll jump right in. And the road to coaching often begins with fandom and a playing career. How young did you get started playing in baseball, and how did you get involved in the sport?
So I apologize ahead of time if this was boring and long, so you can always cut me off.
I will not be cutting you off. That's what we're here for. Hear from you.
So I grew up in a town where sports was a way of life, I should say. So it was Southington, Connecticut, so born and raised. So it was a big sports town. Rob Dibble came from there. Carl Pavano came from there. A couple other big players.
That's a name I'm familiar with.
Yep. So just grew up playing baseball and all 3 sports: baseball, soccer, football, and in my case basketball, baseball. And it was what we did growing up in the neighborhood. It's what we did when we went to middle school, when we went to junior high school and high school, and so forth and so on. So I just fell in love with the sport, and next thing you know is we're going to additional clinics to enhance my skill set, and next thing you know I'm in college and playing sports in D2 for St. Anselm College, and I'll put a plug in. I set a couple records there as well, but
modest.
Yeah, just it's not bragging if it's true. So, but it allowed me. It allowed me an opportunity to have a chance to play in the minors for a brief time.
So you mentioned a variety of different sports. I heard football was among those. We have the faculty staff football game coming up. Will you be a part of that?
I would love to be part of it. I didn't play football because my parents wouldn't let me, but I love football and I would love to play. When is that?
That is coming up, I believe, on March 5th. Dave might be able to correct me off camera. He says it sounds about right, so we'll find out. We'll double check that for you. Great. Dave has typically been the quarterback, and our former assistant SID, Tom Krichkowski, was undefeated in the game over the course of his tenure. So I'm looking forward to keeping that streak going for him. We actually didn't participate last year because we had a baseball game that day. So
that's rude.
Sal came to us this year. He made sure that the game was scheduled for a day where we don't have any programming, so we are in.
March 5th.
Yes.
That's like next week.
You know, that's a good point. It's coming up.
I realize that.
Yeah, it's coming up, and by the time this airs, it's going to be just a couple of days away.
We better start training right now.
Yes. I've been in the gym quite a bit. I haven't had my conditioning work getting in, but fortunately I've got the strength training down, so we'll see how that works out. So you mentioned a variety of different sports growing up. How did you choose baseball as the sport that you would pursue as an athletic young athlete? And
that's a good question.
Played so many sports.
I never really thought of it. I just think I was just better at it than the other ones, and I just enjoyed it, and the way, the etiquette and the history of it, and the way it's played, and the camaraderie. It's a whether you're playing or watching, it's an event. Yeah. So learning how to deal with longevity of it, just the length of the game, and what happens in the dugout, pre-game, during the game, and post-game, it just really resonated with me. And the little intricacies of the game and the etiquette that is unsaid, I don't know, it just resonated with me. And again, big reason was better than the other sports.
You mentioned the etiquette of the game, so I have to divert a little bit
Sure.
just for a moment.
Absolutely.
I think you might know what I'm about to ask you. The Houston Astros, yes, the Houston Astros. I need to know your thoughts on that. I grew up around the game. I'm a huge Mets fan. Unfortunately, my team hasn't made it all the way to the World Series and won during my lifetime. I've seen them play in it twice, but the Astros coming away with the World Series on the heels now of a cheating scandal. What are your thoughts on that?
So, I'll take a step back. So,
Yes.
It's always been, I wouldn't say cheating ways. You always want to pick people's signs, right? But there's an ethical way, and it's an ethical way
Yes.
of doing it. I think if you didn't want people to know, you wouldn't have signs. You'd be just telling them what to do.
Yes.
But there's a way to do it the right way and a wrong way. And I think when technology comes involved now, that's
Center field camera should not be involved in the process.
that's not ethical, in my opinion. Again, there's ways to steal signs and pick people's signs if they're doing a bad job of not hiding them from the team. But as far as technology is concerned, I don't agree with it, and I commend them for getting that edge. But how they did it is the wrong way.
Of course.
What they should do after that is, I don't know.
I won't ask you that question.
Listen, I'm glad I'm not the commissioner. The commissioner's
tough job.
is having a hard time both with the players and the fans, and so I don't envy his position right now.
Yeah, whoever's laying down the punishment, whether it be for something like this or in the NFL, they've had issues in the past as well. It's never an enviable position to be in. You can't make everyone happy, and you have the players' union that will get on top of you if you impose a harsh punishment. So
that's the thing that is everyone's afraid of, is the players' union.
yeah, it's a tough position to be in. And on the TVs across from us right now, they're discussing the new NFL players' union contract.
I was trying to focus on us.
Yes, there's a lot of movement on the television screen in front of us, but they're discussing a new contract for the NFL Players Union as well. So Players Union is a hot topic right now, and that's something that's a topic far off from where we're headed in this discussion. A lot that goes into that, but a very interesting discussion for perhaps another day on the Dolphin Pod, maybe.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned that there's an ethical way to steal signs. What position did you play when you were young, and were you involved in the protection of signs as you grew older and progressed through baseball?
So when I started playing, I started as a shortstop pitcher, but I loved it all, so I wanted to try everything. I loved catching.
Yeah.
When I first started, because in the catching position, you get the cool gear, right? And let's face it, it's
customized gear, especially today. Yes.
Now, back then,
yeah, the customized gear.
I'm old school. We didn't have customized. It was like one size fits all. So I just enjoyed it. I mean, the gear and the dirt and the being involved in every play and controlling the game in a way. But I also love playing short. Same reason. You can manage the field and manage the game a little bit. So that I love. As far as say stealing signs,
protecting the signs.
Protecting
signs. You would never steal signs.
I would never.
Never.
So as far as protecting them, there's just a way to do it. And nowadays you have these cards. I don't know if you feel this. Specifically in softball is a little different than baseball, although baseball is now going to that as well, where you have the coaches yelling numbers out on their play cards, and it's a whole new level of privacy and a whole new level of protecting your signs. Back in the day, it was just like indicated, like I said, old school.
Yeah.
It was like nose means a bunt or whatever that case may be. It was that's how intricate it got, depending on how many signals you wanted to get.
How elaborate you wanted to get.
Totally.
And I've seen some coaches have a lot of fun with that as well.
Yeah, some of it's just distraction.
Yeah. So I've seen pitchers who go out to the circle with a wristband on that contains maybe a paper card or a plastic card. Does that relate to the signs you were just discussing?
That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
So typically what will happen is pitcher will have signs, and what they'll do is, depending on how it's set up with the pitching coach or whoever is calling the signs, is it can either be dictated from the bench to the catcher, to the pitcher, or to the pitcher and catcher at once. But a lot of times what happens is the pitching coach will have the signs, will throw it out like, throw like a 2, 3, 4, or whatever, and the whole infield will look at to see what pitch is coming, because it also in their card is they'll see the defensive setup for what the other team's offense looks like, so you can kind of like shade a little bit. So I'm all about stats and also about tendencies, but you also have to pitch those tendencies, so you're setting your team up for the right position to make the right play, so you're setting yourself up the best way to succeed.
I know you were involved with strategy over at Yale. We'll talk more about the position at Yale coming up later in the show, but is that something that you started picking up on at a young age, progressing as you grew up and moved on to high school ball and college ball? Did you pick up on tendencies, or you had coaches that were passing that information down along to you?
I think I was blessed growing up with really good coaches. So, truth be told, my whole goal in life was never to be a coach. I respected them, I loved them, and I, like I said, I was blessed to have really great coaches along the way who really know their sport and their technique and how to coach. But what I really appreciated more importantly than that, was they cared, and they showed that caring as a person, which then carried over to what it was like on the field. So when you have that caring piece with knowledge and expertise within that sport, whether it be basketball, baseball, or whatever that case may be, it just helps you as a player want to do more, not just for them, not just for yourself, but also for them and for the team. So I was lucky enough to be instilled some good values and some virtues, and from my coaches. So shout out to all my coaches in the past. Thank you.
Yeah. Thankfully for you, I didn't ask you to name drop many of them, because then you have a long list.
No,
you forget to thank people, and that creates a tough situation. But progressing through the system now, moving on to college ball, did you go through a recruiting process entering your collegiate career, or was it more of a choice based on convenience and location? How did you end up at your collegiate team, St. Anselm College?
Yeah, no, it was funny. I kind of look back, and I don't want to say that blindly. Baseball just kind of happened naturally for me. So I wasn't like planning on. Don't get me wrong. My whole, growing up, your dream as a young boy is to play professional sports. Whether again, football, basketball.
Certainly is. I can tell you that.
So, yeah. But it's very rare that happens. It takes a select, special person to do that. Of course, I had that in the back of my mind. But when I was going to college, I wasn't thinking like that's going to be a stepping stone to go to the pros.
Yeah.
I knew I had scouts see me at high school games. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
But when I went to college, I wanted to stay within the New England area, in a small school. For me, the education was most important, and it just so happened that St. Anselm was a fit for me. So we did the whole college tour thing with my parents, and so I just fell in love with St. A's. It's like a ski resort where you get an education, and luckily I was happy to be part of that year. That recruiting class happened to be the year we kind of changed that program around, which is actually our 28th anniversary this year. Just only dropped that because it was posted on Instagram, and they got. Just a shout out to St. A's. They are ranked nationally the first time since my year, 1992. Can't believe I just said 1992. I just showed how old I was, but go ahead.
Well, Eric, so I hate to break it to you. That was before I was born.
I know.
Close. I was born in 93, but was not born in 1992, the last time they were ranked, so close. But part of your role now here at CSI, Academic Success Coordinator, and you mentioned the studies being your priority at St. A's. So how did you balance the athletics with the academic, and how do you try and tell our students to create that balance?
I also do this to the recruits when they come as well, and it's a concern for the parents and the kids, like how do we start, especially going D2, it's a different level of commitment athletically, right? So you have to balance it. So when I share with the student athletes when they come sit down with me, just softball about all the student athletes, is you have to prioritize now. Now you have a different level of priority. Your number one job when you come to school is, number one, be a great student. 2, be a great athlete, whatever sport that is. And 3, enjoy your college career. Because if you are not doing well in school, or if you're not doing well, it's gonna affect your play in this field or the court, and then it ends up happening you're gonna have a really bad college experience. So to me, and I asked all the athletes, is when they come and talk to me, is the more you're scheduled, the more busy you are, the more freedom you actually have. Because when they have that free time, that's when they get in trouble because they don't know what to do. Like, it's free time, and they kind of don't know what to do because they're not structured as they were. The more structured you are, the more freedom you have. And it takes them a little while. They first feel like, what does that mean? And then we start processing it, and we kind of lay it out a little bit, and like, that gap time for them, they don't know how to deal with it.
Well, I can tell you that structure would have been a great help to me when I was a student at CSI. I was typically a last-minute worker, I have to admit, so I didn't have much of a game plan when it came to tackling assignments. I always did well, had good grades here. I think I was about a 3.75 GPA when I was here, so that caught Dave's attention once I was in his class, and that's actually how I got hired onto the game day team out of Dave's class.
Really?
The very last
Which
class that I
was
took, it was the sports management
It was
class.
sports management.
The first ever offering of that class, so I'm a member of the original sports management student body there, and parlayed it into a position here, and I'm still here. So I thought that would be my last day on campus ever, the last time I walked out of that classroom.
And now it's not. Now you're here with me.
Yeah, 5 years later.
I will say this. There is something to say for people with pressure and putting it the last minute. So the fact that you wait till the last minute, you deal with pressure.
That's where the gray hair came from.
Again, I don't recommend it for everybody, but
no, I definitely do not recommend it. I could have used a bit more structure, but I typically worked well, knowing I had to finish by a certain time. And let's say that those 3 hours I spent on the assignment at the last minute, those were 3 very structured hours.
For sure.
Went to work really hard. So beyond college, you get your degree. You move on and played some minor league baseball in the Reds organization. I grew up around minor league baseball. Have some good stories I'll share with you. What are some of your best stories from your time with the Reds? Some of the highlights.
Wow. I think, for the most part, that's a great question. There's a lot, so that's why I have to make sure I pick and choose the correct ones.
I have a couple of good ones from the Staten Island Yankees. A couple of good ones.
Did you play for the?
I did not.
Okay, so I didn't know that. I thought,
I was very close to the team. My father was actually the treasurer of their booster club, and I was very, very close at times to some of the players because my father would take photos of the players, and he would give them photos. And they didn't have a photographer who was in the stands normally taking photos of them. So he would take photos of them, give it to them for them and their families to get some signed.
Really?
So yeah,
I think
he did
that's
that
great.
for quite a while.
I think for me, this is going to sound lame, but I really enjoyed the clubhouse. I like the training that we do when we go down and for the spring training piece of it, and just the camaraderie. And then the word's used so overused, and it's not for not every sport is like this, and every team is like this. But again, I was lucky enough where we had a group of guys who, kind of realized, like, some of us were going to make it, some of us weren't going to be like, well, I just stopped playing. Like, it wasn't really my choice. Mm-hmm. So, but spending time with them on the field, in the clubhouse, going out to dinner, meeting their girlfriends, some of them had kids, and I don't know how they did it, but it was, that was it. So like I can call these guys up, and to this day, they'd be like, "What's going on?" Like I just got a text the other day from a couple like, "When did you leave Yale? What's going on with how's CSI? How'd you get there?" So I mean, they find us, we find each other just randomly. So they're brethren and they're family, and they've always been. And I haven't seen those guys probably again. Not to throw numbers out. 25 years. 25 years.
Yeah. Make sure you send them the link to the show once this goes live.
Without a doubt.
100%. I'm sure they'll be very happy to see it.
Make it go viral.
Right. So I'll share with you one very notable story from my time around the Staten Island Yankees, and hopefully you didn't go through something similar to this, but one game, Staten Island Yankees, Brooklyn Cyclones. I'm probably about 10 years old. I'm sitting in the front row behind home plate, and Brooklyn Cyclones batter at the plate. Staten Island Yankees pitcher drills him in the helmet with a pitch. Helmet, I don't know if it was cracked already, but the player spiked his helmet. It sure cracked when it hit the ground. It initiated a full-scale brawl between the two teams. Benches, dugouts completely clear, bullpens empty, and these players are going at it all over the field. A lot of these guys, probably between 18 and 20 years old.
Right.
We're at St. George. Yes, a lot of testosterone on the field. So we're across the street from the precinct. They had to call the precinct and send the officers across the street to break this brawl up. And I was actually bat boy following the brawl, maybe a month or two later, same season.
So you're watching the game, you're not bat boy
I'm watching the game. I'm not bat boy yet.
Okay.
So the brawl occurs, it's broken up. I'm not bat boy yet. I was bat boy about a month or two later.
Okay.
And I had to use the bathroom between innings, so I go into the clubhouse. The broken Brooklyn Cyclones helmet is on the top of the Staten Island Yankees television in the clubhouse. Had to be the same helmet.
Had to be.
There's no other reason to have a Brooklyn Cyclones helmet on top of your TV.
It was a trophy.
Yeah, it was a trophy. I don't know who won the brawl. They got me out of there because these players are literally within arm's distance of me in the front row because the netting was separating me from the field. But they're right there.
I was going to ask you, as a 10-year-old, what was going through your head? Were you scared? Were you like, what is going on?
I was just sitting there wide-eyed, like, what is happening? It was more of just, I guess, a stupor I was in, just sitting there. My instinct wasn't get out of the way. Today it would be. I don't want to be anywhere near that.
And the precinct was across the street?
It was across the street from the ferry terminal.
Did anyone get arrested?
As far as I know, they did not, but I don't remember if the game continued. I don't remember much that happened after that.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
But it was definitely a serious incident they had there. And I wonder if there's any record of it or some video of it. It had to be probably 2001 or 2002.
After the show, I'm definitely going for that.
Yeah,
because I want to see if I can find not so much the fight. I definitely want to see the fight, but I want to see if I can see you behind.
If there is video, I will 100% be right there in the front row.
Right,
I think I know what I was wearing too.
Let's look for that later.
We will definitely look for that later. So, beyond minor league baseball, the transition from baseball to softball, how did that transition occur, and how did you end up in coaching? You said you had vowed not to become a coach, something you specifically did not want to do. So, how did that transition occur?
So at the time, I was living in Connecticut, and I met who was my now wife. She was visiting in Connecticut as well. So we were. I moved to Minnesota to be with her, and she had 2 kids from a previous marriage. So my stepdaughter got involved with softball, and she loved it. She started watching it on TV, and started playing it. And being a baseball guy, and never seeing softball, I'm like, this is a stupid sport. Why am I watching this dumb sport? This is awful, horrendous. And then watching her play, like rec league when she was younger and growing up, I saw her play, and I'm like, that coaches and team. I know there's a difference. There's a subtle difference between softball and baseball. I'm like, I know that's not right. That technique's not right. That's not right. That's not right. You're teaching that wrong. So one day, one of the parents from the association, like, do you want to help me coach in the fall? I'm like, sure, why not? So I was able to do that. So long story short, short story long, however deep you want me to go with it, was I fell in love with it watching her play. That's the only time I coached her. She was like 9, and one other time. But other than that, I just wanted to enjoy her play. But because of that, I got, I don't want to say roped up, but synced in with the association, the Basketball Association in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. And next thing you know, I went from coaching a 9-year-old team in 1 state, and coaching the next 3 years in 1 state each year. And then I got in charge of player development for the whole 300 kids in the association, and then we had our travel program. So we had like 300 kids ranging from 8U all the way to 18U. So next thing you know, moving up the ranks with some teams and became part of the association. Here we are.
Well,
that's how I started.
If some of our viewers watched the preview to this week's episode, which went up last week, they saw that you were wearing some very different headwear. We saw some Yale University head hats and an Arctic Blast hat as well in one of the photos. So we'll start with Arctic Blast, the softball club program in Minnesota. State championships 4 times, and the College of Staten Island, a CUNYAC championship winning program, and that was our former conference, now of course members of the ECC, though you do play the CUNY teams this year as well. But a championship program you're inheriting, how'd you go about building a championship program with Arctic Blast in Minnesota, and how does that relate to trying to build a championship program here at CSI?
Good question. So Arctic Blast is one of the Minnesota teams, so that was one of the teams that I within that association that I was also the coach of, in addition to the player development. So luckily, same thing with, I think the similarities is recruiting and adopting to your program good character kids who, it starts with the character kids, because if they're good kids, then they're going to work hard for you. You can't force someone to do something they don't want to do. They can have all the talent in the world, but I can teach you talent. I can teach technique. Yeah. Talent's special, but I can't teach you good character, and that comes from a good family. I think, from my understanding, as I start learning more and I do my due diligence within Staten Island area and the past success of the championship team, and the team that I adopted this year, is they're all good kids, and they all come from good families. And I think that is the key and the cornerstone to building a foundational championship. The other stuff you can learn and teach, as far as like the discipline, and the standards, and the expectations. Those are vital, but you can't teach that stuff without the good character. Does that make sense?
Definitely does. And I was around the team quite a bit last year. I have friendships with a lot of them, and I can certainly attest a team full of good character kids and kids that I'm very friendly with as well. And they actually went and bought me a birthday gift at one point. So that
when was your
Crocs.
birthday?
It was way back last year, but they gave me a pair of Crocs. I jokingly...
They love Crocs.
They do.
I don't know what it is with softball players. Yeah. They love Crocs. I'm going to show my age again. Is it giblets or giblets? Is it giblets?
They put the soft. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Right.
It's like GIF. I don't know which one is correct. I think I say GIF, and I create GIFs for the players. The softball team will be getting theirs, I promise. We're actually doing the baseball teams today, so we'll see how that goes. And those are always very entertaining. I don't know if you've seen any of them on our Twitter, but we have motion graphics. You have?
I have. Before I came here, I wanted to make sure I did my due diligence, as well. So
you were scrolling through the feed.
I am impressed with your skill set, because that's like magic to me. Like, I don't understand technology. Like, that's like, how does he make that work?
I felt the same way about a year ago before I took over this position, and I did a lot of studying up on Photoshop to get prepared. A lot of help from our former SID, Tom Krichkowski, as well, so a shout out to him. We actually saw him last week. Came into the office for a lunch. It was great to see him again,
awesome.
But he deserves a lot of the credit for the work I've done on Photoshop and After Effects thus far.
Don't ever tell anyone it's easy. Just say it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I will. If there's something that they're asking me to do, and it might be a big inconvenience, oh man, that's a lot of work. But I always end up doing it for them, and they think, oh wow, he went above and beyond for me. Great. I'm always willing to, but sometimes I may stretch just how difficult it is, just a bit.
No, do it. It looks great.
Just a bit. So, national tournament appearances as well. Where does that rank in terms of your measures for success? So you're inheriting the CSI softball program, year one of Division II, the provisional year one, I should say.
Yep.
What would be your timeline for achieving something like that, a national championship tournament in NCAA Division II? And is that something that factored into your thinking when you were coaching Arctic Blast? So I should mention, great name and great headwear as well for that team.
I will say this, I have to make a note about the Minnesota team. It's so funny, we joke about it a little bit. Like any team, all the travel teams within the Minnesota area, it's the chill, it's the blast, it's the blizzard. I mean, they love the weather.
I have a friend who lives in Minnesota.
Yeah.
He was telling me about the record cold temperatures that he had I think it was this past winter. And he was telling me like minus 30 degrees, so it's certainly applicable, and it is cold there.
It's ridiculous. It's great 3 months out of the year. 3.5 maybe, but after that, you're really inside. You don't want to go outside. It's freezing. And as far as softball is concerned, you have to play at college. My stepdaughter plays for Kraut College in Minnesota. They started their season, but until they go down south, they are actually they play their games in the domes right now. They hate it, but they love it because it's
It's a unique experience. You don't get that over here in this area of the country. Dome softball.
But again, they always have to fight early in this part of the season. So early, they're always playing maybe 2 feet of snow on the ground. So get back to your original question. Sorry, I went up on tangent.
No problem at all.
What was the second half of it? So I got caught up with the names.
The time, great names. So I can't blame you there. But the timeline for achieving something like participating in a national championship tournament, something you did, or I should say, a national tournament with the Arctic Blast program. What would be your timeline for that with College of Staten Island, and where does that rank in terms of your measures for success?
I think it's definitely a phase. I think every coach would like to have it done like the next year, right, or their first full year. It's aggressive. I definitely see, as we're building, you have to build the foundation, that first part, so then you can start building that legacy and your own brand based on your coaching philosophy. So you have to have some success there, and then success will build on that, on the previous success. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So as we go D2, we're trying to bring in that as a college overall. We're trying to bring in that next layer of kid, athletically and academically. So that success will breed more success, and the next thing you know is we have, when you just work properly and not over a powerhouse, a real class act program, and people can see that it's not just about the wins and losses. Don't get me wrong, that's super important as well. But
I'll be asking you about it later.
Yeah, it's bigger. It's bigger than just the wins and losses. So what that young woman becomes after she graduates, and how she gives back to the program, how she gives back to the community, how she gives back to the school, whether they're from Staten Island, New York area, or whether they're from California or anywhere in between. Does that make sense? So to me, that's a bigger picture for me. It's a bigger measure of success for me. because that's long lasting. That's the legacy. As far as wins and national, I want that within. Ideally, like that get in 3 to 5 years. But that's going to have to be a lot of work on my end and a lot of work for the program to make sure we're bringing those quality kids as well.
And our compliance officer, Erin Van Nostren, you work very closely with her.
Every day.
She is a national championship winning softball head coach. So what is some information that she perhaps passed along to you, or does she let you do your own thing? Does she give you a lot of input?
No, the benefit of that is a huge pros as far as I'm concerned, because she's experienced it. She's played it. She experienced it. Her colleagues in that respect. So I like to come to her and we like to bounce ideas, or just even talk softball and baseball, just to talk shop all about it, right? And then somehow just segues into the program. And if I have a question, like, have you seen this? I don't want to reinvent the wheel. What do you recommend? Or, this is going well. So she's always there to support us and she's got a vested interest. Not only she's my boss, but she loves the game, and I love the fact that I can get excited about a player on the roster or about our team, and she gets excited about it as well. Or if I got a recruit coming, I get excited. Like, she gets excited with me because we see the same thing, the same potential within that kid.
And listening to her call some games on Sportsnet was fascinating. I listened to her call some games alongside Dave. I think she may have called maybe one game alongside Mike as well. But listening to her talk about the game and the intricacies of even base running, stuff that I didn't know, right, is very entertaining to listen to. And we hope to have her back this year. We'll see if she gets back on the air at some point.
That's a great play-by-play person. You want that expert who gives a little more context with what's going on, because there's a lot of little games within the game and a lot of little nuances that you don't really realize unless you've actually played the game or been coached in that game. So that's vital.
Right. So moving on to your tenure at Yale, a big part of that was recruiting, and you mentioned finding those student athletes who meet academic and athletic requirements. How difficult is it to find, or how difficult was it to find a student athlete who met the academic standards of Yale, while at the same time were able to perform on the softball field at a high level?
Yeah, the Ivies was. I really enjoyed it, but it was it's a different breed altogether. Just because every kid has a 4.0 and every kid has a 1600 on an SAT, so that's nothing special within the Ivies, right? But as far as now, you have to add that other piece because there's no scholarships for Ivies. It's like needs based, and like I said, everyone's got a 4.0 or so it's super competitive. But as they have been transitioning, that league has become athletically across the board more and more competitive. The teams have been going down in the South and playing like big time schools, like Power 5 schools, not just softball, but also within the other sports world. But as far as going out there, like at the beginning, it was like almost like an afterthought for some of these travel ball coaches and the recruiting. It's like, oh, I have a really smart kid for you. I'm like, okay, stop. Are they Ivy League smart? Because I'm sure she's smarter than me, but they're not, And P.S. can she play? So there's like it's like twofold, right? They would just think like Ivy will take anyone who's smart. Like, nah. They also need to know how to play a little bit as well.
I looked up those standards this morning and saw those SAT scores between 730 and 800 in each section on average.
Right.
I don't know what my score translated to. It wasn't between 1460 and 1600, so that is impressive.
I'm glad you said that. I went to St. Anselm first because people are like, did you go there? I'm like, yeah, no, I just coached there. I couldn't get the Ivies.
So what are some of the highlights in that Division I coaching experience? And I know you set I think it was a win total in a decade, a win total high for Yale in a decade as part of that coaching staff. What are some of the other high points from your tenure there?
That's definitely one of them. I think a couple of mine was, I think my very first year there, one of the biggest highlights for me was we got a chance to go actually play Auburn. Auburn at the time was ranked number 1. We were not ranked. So the fact that we got the chance to see that next level, that's a whole different level. That's a whole different athlete. That facility is a whole different facility, right? It's geared to those players who are not just softball, but the football program. That was a huge highlight for me because we actually got a chance to see the football field. We actually were on the football field. We actually got a chance to go through the locker room, the football locker room. We got to see Bo Jackson's locker. It's all immortalized. It was it was impressive. It was something definitely to, as for me, as we grow, even at Yale, even now, like it's a way for us to think what we could potentially be. Again, probably not that big, but good policies and good procedures and facilities and what it could look like in our D2 world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But for me, that was like probably one of the most exciting experiences. And honestly, the kids who graduated and the kids that on this team this year, they keep in touch and ask them how I'm doing. I ask how they're doing. They just came back from Florida. No, actually, they went to California. They just came back from California on a little trip, and so got a chance to watch them live stream. But they check in on me, and I check in on them. So good relationships nonetheless.
So you're heading, I believe it's to Pennsylvania and Connecticut early this season. Any trips in the pipeline for the future? Because I know that's a question I get a lot. Something I'm excited about. I got to go on one of the trips. Do you have any plans for that down the line?
Yeah, this year not so much. This year was more along the lines of we got to make sure we have enough pitching. As everyone knows, pitching wins championships. And right now, at the time, we had one pitcher, and it just wasn't fair to the team to go on this 10-day road trip with one pitcher. I have a season to look. We got a season to look forward to, longevity. Luckily, we have 4 pitchers now, so now we have a chance to. Now we have a chance to compete and be healthy, and now we can. Now, if we had the 4 pitchers who were healthy, so we have 4 pitchers who are healthy in the beginning, it's a whole different story going. But right now, at the time, it was kind of like, okay, what's going on? We had 1 injured pitcher, 1 pitcher that could throw, so to speak, 2 in the beginning. So next year, since we have a lot of the California recruits coming in, my goal is to make sure that we are getting a chance to go back. So I'd like to actually, where a lot of the players are from, so ideally I'd like to go back to California so they can see, they have a little home cooking, they can see their parents, the parents can see their kids and know that the kids are still alive. But bigger than that, I'm kind of like the opportunity to potentially go to abroad. I have a contact, a friend who's in travel in the softball community, and Cuba was an option. Again, that is something we have to fundraise for, so I like to do that within the 3-5 year range. But definitely next year, short term, we want to go to California. Long term, Cuba, maybe another couple games abroad. I know one of our friends, for example, went to South Africa. So just tell let softball be a tool to get you where you want to go and be more worldly. Yeah, that makes sense?
Of course. Cool. And I know I've been on a couple of trips now, a softball trip last year and a basketball trip this year, and I know how important those trips are toward building team camaraderie and how much the players enjoy it as well. And you mentioned having players from California. We actually had a player, her name slips my mind at this point because it was a visiting player, but one of the players on the visiting team, I believe it was College of New Rochelle, her family came. I think it was from California for her birthday when they were playing CSI. And
that's awesome.
They were actually hiding underneath the bleachers trying to surprise her before the game.
For the other team.
For the other team. So her family was hiding underneath the bleachers before the start of the game. This had to be about 2.5 hours, 3 hours before the game, and I escorted them into the dugout once the team arrived, and we surprised her, and that was a great moment. So I know how important it is for the family to see the players, and as you mentioned, the opportunity for some of those California native players to revisit their families at home, and for them to know they're still alive, as you said.
How did they contact you?
They actually found me before the game. I was setting up. I think I was down there.
So they were there. They were planning a surprise the whole.
They were planning the surprise the whole time, but they wanted to make a nice grand entrance. So I took their phone for them, recorded it on video, and we entered the dugout and surprised the team and of course the player. When she saw her family, was in tears. It was a great moment. We caught it on
exciting. That's fun.
It was a great part of the job that often goes unspoken, but it's a story I like to tell because it's definitely something that I take great pride in. The student-athlete experience always. I wrote it in my cover letter. We discussed it in meetings, but that's always the priority.
No, I love it. That's awesome.
All right, so Eric and I will wait our food. We'll be back in just a few moments here on episode 6 of the Coaches Show Live. When we come back, we'll talk to Eric about his path to the College of Staten Island, how he ended up at CSI, his expectations for this season, and much more. This is the Coaches Show Live, exclusively on CSI Sportsnet.
The Kettle Black on Staten Island, a top 5 wing joint in America by Food and Wine magazine. Serving daily lunch and dinner at the bar or on the floor. Perfect for family and group parties with top shelf drink and delicious food. From great times with good friends, live sports and watch parties, to Staten Island's hottest nightlife. The Kettle Black features live music and DJs weekly. The Kettle Black features daily and nightly food and drink specials. The best Staten Island has to offer is at the Kettle Black. We'll see you there at the Kettle Black, located on 415 Forest Avenue, Staten Island.
Hobra, a taco joint, Staten Island, where we're proud to have shared our family-first spirit with people from throughout New York City and the world. With indoor dining available both at the bar and on the floor. Or step outside for additional seating and an outdoor bar. Serving beer that's crisp, ice cold, and worthy of a day at the beach. Cocktails that explode with flavor. And great food made with the freshest and healthiest ingredients available. Events feature food and drink specials. Live music. And the best of Staten Island nightlife. Your CSI Student ID saves you 10% on your dining order at Hobra. Visit us at 412 Forest Avenue, Staten Island. And we are back from Hobra, a taco joint on Forest Avenue of Staten Island. Eric and I just had our food arrive. This is episode 6 of the Coaches Show Live with our guest, CSI softball head coach Eric Kraut. Eric, our food is here. What did you order?
I'm excited. It is Ash Wednesday, so I went with fish. So I went with 2 classic fish taco, and I went a little spicy because I like a little spice, shrimp Diablo.
As usual, I got my chicken quesadilla and 3 different tacos today: beef, fish, and chicken. And there you see Dave's. I believe he had 2 pork and a shrimp taco as well. So you get a nice look at all of our food, and I know I'm excited to get started eating, and you are too, Eric. But
totally.
Over our meal, we will talk a bit more about your path to the College of Staten Island. So you move on from Yale and on to CSI. How did that opportunity come onto your radar, and what was the process like coming on board?
Okay, so how I got here. So when we lived in Minnesota, our whole goal was to, because our families were from the East Coast, once our kids were out, our whole goal was to be back towards the East Coast with our families. So I luckily got a job in New York, so we lived in Manhattan, and I asked her, again, I have to ask her permission and everything. So can I coach? She goes, absolutely. So that's how I got my coaching job at Yale. So what ended up happening though is, because it was so time consuming, is during the school season, I would live in Connecticut. So I only saw my wife 2 months out of the year for 4 years. So the first year was great, because we both had our freedom. We both loved it. Second year got a little old, third year old, fourth year it's like, we can't do this anymore. Plus the two months that I had off, it was actually a month I was recruiting, so I only saw maybe a month out of the year. So prior to this, we were talking about making a change so we can have a marriage and relationship, so I can stay married. So we were looking for other opportunities. I was looking for other opportunities, and this opportunity came about just by searching, and it seemed to be a great fit based on both my strengths. A unique opportunity, because not only do I get to be the softball coach, head softball coach, but the part I really dig as well is being the student athletic success coordinator. So both my strengths based on my background, it kind of was a great fit. So it kind of worked out well.
So you mentioned being the academic success coordinator, and there's a lot that goes into that. I've seen the student athletes frequenting your office, getting advice on scheduling classes and what classes they need to take, what time slots are available to them. But the two components of that job are motivation, getting the student athletes motivated to perform in the classroom, and the patience you have to have with them sometimes, because not all athletes come in with the same level of motivation to perform in the classroom. So when you have a situation like that where a student athlete isn't necessarily as motivated to perform in the classroom as they are on the field, how do you deal with that, and what's your message to them?
I would relate it to them like as they would their team and their sport and their coach. Like, the things you're getting away with, you think you're getting away with now with your professor, would you get away with that with your coach? And be like, no. And that's the correlation. That's the analogy that you have to. They have to get the buy-in, right? So it's one thing to tell them something. You need to do this because I said so, right? It's good for you. But if you make that analogy, that connection for them, like, your coach isn't going to put up with this. The president isn't going to put up with this. So why would you have two different standards? And they have to have that connection, like, oh, it's the same thing, without them even knowing it.
I think that's a great way to put it, something I've never thought of on my own. And I see you going for the hot sauce. I should mention that
I'm trying to figure out
Cobra has their own brand of hot sauce and pepper sauce. So a lot of options in front of us. I'll get this out of
I don't want to. Is this it?
Yeah, you take a look. Let's see. I think this is it. I think. Yep, this is the jalapeno pepper sauce. So
Done.
get a look
where
at
else?
that.
Dave's bringing Dave's bringing his private reserve from
Because this one's open already.
Oh, this is a totally different one.
Different label.
How much?
Yeah, it is a different label, but
I would try this one.
yeah, we'll try the one that is open. So plenty of sauce options here at Cobra
We'll mix it
as
up.
well.
We'll do a rating.
We also have some Cholula. So Cholula, excuse me.
That's all right.
Yep, I was halfway between Chipotle and Cholula.
Have you seen the? I want to say it's a segment, like a segment kind of show. Like he meets with actors and they eat hot wings.
Oh,
all the
I
time.
have seen that.
And they have.
Yep.
Maybe we should add that next time. If I get to go on next time, we can kind of like do a ranking of hotness.
You and TJ Tibbs, that would be a phenomenal addition to the Sportsnet's lineup.
Okay, let's do that then. Let's make sure we schedule that slot.
Eric Kraut and TJ Tibbs rate hot sauces. We have fast food dipping sauces, and I know
I don't hide it well.
TJ about it as well.
I don't hide it well I might sweat because of the ball. But I love it.
I've always been someone who goes red in the face when I exert myself. So when it comes to the exercise and the weightlifting, I typically get very red-faced. I don't know if that would apply to the sauces as well, but I'm not so eager to find out, especially on camera. So I'll leave that to you and TJ, though. It should be a very entertaining offering. And I know another offering we discussed for Sportsnet perhaps over the summer. Aaron, a big Star Wars fan as well. I'm not sure if you're into Star Wars at all, but
I am.
You are. All right.
Have you watched The Mandalorian at all?
I have not, because
You're not a Star Wars fan?
I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm not a big Disney guy, so
that's fair.
I feel like it went very south with Disney. We're going to talk about that later in the show. We wrapped it up on the last show with Andrew as well. Him and I discussed Star Wars a bit, so that's something that we will discuss as well later in the show. But back to the academic success coordinator aspect of your job. There's a lot of preparation that goes in on the field, and we see that occurring in the tank and right now in the Aux gym. I know you've gotten out to the softball field a couple of times already, right?
Luckily, for February right now, we've had like some really mild weather. So every chance we have, we're going to be outside. So, and you can't replace live reps outside. It's a whole different vibe, a whole different type of energy. It's great to have the gym and the accessibility of the gym, but being outside, there's nothing replaces it. The energy the players bring, it's another level.
So we know a lot of the preparation that goes into the on-field product. In the classroom, when you're trying to coach someone perhaps on how to prepare to pass an exam or to do well in school, what advice do you give them in that regard?
Again, it's priorities. Knowing what's the reason you're taking these courses, and that's just for the sake of taking your courses. It's like you want to do something after you graduate. So the more you put you have to have that big goal, that big picture, but then you have to bring it back to what your first step is in front of you. So you have to then again relate that connection to why they're doing it versus just doing it for the sake of doing it. Because if you don't do well in this, then you're not going to do well in what you want to do when you graduate, aka when you grow up and you grow up.
So what percentage of students would you say come into your office with a post-graduation goal? Because admittedly, I did not have one when I was a student here. I came on, I wasn't sure I wanted to attend college, but I wanted 4 more years of, freedom, so I called it, freedom to live at home. And I did pay rent throughout the end of high school and throughout my entire college career, but I wanted the freedom to have options.
Right.
And I felt like if I did not go to college, there were very few options on the table for me beyond that. So in college, I developed an online business, something I've spoken about on the air briefly before, but I really didn't have a plan post-graduation and applying my degree. How many students would you say come in with a plan in that respect?
The ones that are currently enrolled at CSI it's funny. They actually have, I want to be a teacher, and they're pretty specific. I'd say a good 85% of the kids I talk to, they know what they want to be. The underclassmen is they're not sure, and that's okay, because that's what college is all about, is exploration. Even as you're coming in as a freshman, unless you know you want to be something because you just know it, like nursing or a teacher, that's fine. I'm not going to deter you, but sometimes people, like, they're nervous because they don't know what they want to be, and that's great because college gives you an opportunity, at least in that first 2 years, to take the core classes, see what you actually like. You may think you like math, you realize I hate it. I like science or biology, and vice versa. So I think the first year or two, you have a chance to figure out what you really enjoy, because you don't know it until you actually participated in it. Because all this is theory at that point.
And I think it benefits a lot of students to hear that you don't necessarily need to know exactly what it is you want to do the first day you walk through the door.
Correct.
Because I was told I needed to have a very strict plan, not by advisors, but by family and friends at times, and they didn't see the direction I was headed, though I put a lot of work into the online business and felt that by the time I graduated, it was viable for me post-graduation. And there would be some who dispute that, but in my own head, I think it worked out pretty well. I was able to move out for a short time, but I won't get into the details of why that didn't work out. I'm back home paying rent again, but hopefully I can change that within the next year or so. But anyway, that's something that I think it would benefit a lot of people to hear. So moving on beyond the academics onto the softball field, expectations for this upcoming season. How has the off season gone, and what are some of your expectations for the team as you get set to get started in about 2 or 3 weeks?
It's just be better than we were last year, and not that they weren't good last year. My whole goal when I coach is always be better than you were the day before. You're only as good as your last game. So they've had 8 years of championships in a row. They've had tremendous success. My whole thing is, let's not rest on that. Just your job every day is to get better as a player. So that's all I want them to just keep improving on their skill set. So when they actually are on the field, they're putting their best foot forward. Instead of like resting on their laurels and like, oh, we're community champs for 8 years, we don't have to work. No, we have to work. You always have to work. And in life too, right? Whether it is, you can't just sit back and rest on that. So especially as we start facing D2 competition, they're trying to be their best as well. So we have to outwork. We have to try to be outwork and be better than we were the day before. Does that make sense? So that's our goal. And right now, if we keep doing that, wins will take care of themselves.
Well, excuse me for looking at my notes, but I want to make sure I quote you correctly. In your introductory article on the CSI website, one of the quotes that you contributed to that was that you look forward to continue the program's winning ways, but also taking the program to the next level in Division II. So the next level, what exactly constitutes the next level, and what are some of the changes that you think you're implementing early on that'll help the program get there?
I think the next level, as far as a couple phases, we're in a failure recovery sport. So it's a big mental game. So how you handle, we're going to start facing different competition, another level, right? And they've had a history of being D2 longer than we've been D2, because right now we're D2 and a half, which I love saying all the time. I got it from Aaron, so yes. We work together, I hear it all the time, so I just D2 and a half.
Yep.
So we may not have the success right from the get-go as we had in the past. So how do we deal with that failure recovery? How do we deal with that strikeout? How do we deal with that loss? Or how do we deal with that error? Or how do we deal with that someone who might be better than us on the field at the moment? How do we come back from that? Versus, are we going to keep our head down, or are we going to keep our head up and strive to be better? Are we going to keep competing to be better personally, so we can be better on a team? So how do we handle that confrontation, that conflict? So a lot of doing that is, doing things we've never done before, they've never done before. More time in the tank, more time weightlifting, heavier, longer, different level of practice, more intensity, maybe a little longer as well. They're learning new things that they've never seen before. Don't get me wrong, there's always fundamentals that you need to have, but sometimes as technology changes and as a sport and drills evolve, my job is to adopt those and bring those in as well. Because if any coach is like, no, I know it all, they're a bad coach. So for me, I'm always trying to figure out and find out what's working for other sports, other programs, whether Power 5, whether it's Ivy, or even within our own division. But there's so much out there that I'm teaching them because they haven't seen it before. Because my goal is to make them the best players they possibly can.
And I think that's a great point. Mental resilience is such a big part of performing athletically, and how you deal with failure says a lot about your character. And when it comes to character, that's often involved in the recruiting process, as you mentioned, finding players of high character. And without going into any specific names, what's some of the feedback that you've received from some of your recruits as they've visited campus? I know you have several commits, and again, we're not going to name them on camera at this point, but what's some of the feedback you've gotten regarding their visits to the College of Staten Island, and what are some of the tendencies you've observed in those players that drew them to you and that made you want them as part of your program?
So for me, when I go recruiting, I'm going to people I know, trust, and respect, because they will never lie to me, and they know my standards and expectations. So when I reached out to them, like, hey, I got this new gig, I need to start, building our bench. I need to start building our program. They know what kind of players I'm looking for. Again, number one for them is they know it's character. So when I talk to the recruits, I mentioned to them, and this is the huge piece of our school, is I express like it's family. It's a really family, and I say that proudly because a lot of times when coaches say that, it's just words. And so when the recruits have come out, that's the first thing they've noticed is like, you're right. This is like family. They see us interact with the coaching staff, the other athletes, even some of the student body just happens to be there. Like this is a family. It's a spread out campus, but it's kind of small at the same time. Whereas some other coaches, this is them telling me this. It's like they would say it, but there's a total disconnect. So again, I go back to this and I explain to them when I talk on the phone, like, especially if you're from California, right? You're 3,000 miles away. If you worry about your child and your child's worried about you, you can't be a great student, can't be a great athlete, and you won't enjoy your experience. And you're going to hate it, and you're going to go run back home. And that's fine. So sometimes being so far away from school, from home, isn't the right path. So ultimately, when I have this recruiting, like, I tell them, like, I'm here to help you, whatever it is. Ideally, I want you to come and see a site. But if it's not a good fit, I'm not going to forget about you. I still want you to be a successful college student. And if it's happening so softball, I'll help you. I'll show you the path and how to do that. So, but ultimately, their experience here is once they come out, luckily, knock on wood, they've committed. So, but it's just more of a checks and balances and confirmation of like, yeah, what Coach Kraut really said is accurate. He's a man of his word.
I can certainly attest to that family atmosphere around the College of Staten Island. It's been really impressive to see and go down that list of recruits and see how many names you've brought in from distances so far away. And it makes me really look forward to next year in the class that's coming on, and all of our programs will have their first official Division II recruiting class. So it's a very exciting time next year, but we have this year to look forward to. So I have one final question before the break. This season and upcoming, there's plenty of measures for success that you've already mentioned, but at the end of year one, what would constitute a successful year one of the Division II provisional period for you? What are you looking for from your team this upcoming season?
To be competitive. And what that looks like is I want us to be a team and a family, and I think a lot of that, they've gone through a lot of transition between last year and this year. So ambiguity is not necessarily a thing that young people are really comfortable with. Some adults, including myself. So I think the fact that they have, for me, a real success is us coming together as a team. And like I said, I think the wins will come as long as we put the work in. That's how I'm kind of measuring this right now. Again, I want to win, but if we focus on the win and not the process is more important to me. I want to focus on the process to get to the wins. If you focus on the wins solely, there's a big gap, and that's what ends up happening, and you don't get what you really want at the end because you're missing a whole vital piece. You're just missing that bridge that takes you where you need to go.
You can correct me. Game 1, March 19th.
March 19th, Bridgeport.
Looking forward to it. When Eric and I come back, we will have our Grill the Guest segment where we'll test Eric's knowledge of his sport, get to learn a little bit more about him. And during the break, Eric and I will finish off our tacos. I got through my quesadilla, but couldn't quite get started on my 3 tacos. So when Eric and I come back, we will continue episode 6 of the Coaches Show Live with our Grill the Guest segment exclusively here on CSI Sportsnet.
The Kettle Black on Staten Island, a top 5 wing joint in America by Food and Wine magazine. Serving daily lunch and dinner at the bar or on the floor. Perfect for family and group parties with top shelf drink and delicious food. From great times with good friends. Live sports and watch parties. To Staten Island's hottest nightlife. The Kettle Black features live music and DJs weekly. The Kettle Black features daily and nightly food and drink specials. The best Staten Island has to offer is at the Kettle Black. We'll see you there at the Kettle Black, located on 415 Forest Avenue, Staten Island.
Cobra, a taco joint, Staten Island, where we're proud to have shared our family-first spirit with people from throughout New York City and the world. With indoor dining available both at the bar and on the floor. Or step outside for additional seating and an outdoor bar. Serving beer that's crisp, ice cold, and worthy of a day at the beach. Cocktails that explode with flavor. And great food made with the freshest and healthiest ingredients available. Events feature food and drink specials. Live music. And the best of Staten Island nightlife. Your CSI Student ID saves you 10% on your dining order at Hobra. Visit us at 412 Forest Avenue, Staten Island. And we are back from Hobra, a taco joint. This is episode 6 of the Coaches Show Live. Once again, I am joined by CSI softball head coach Eric Kraut. And Eric, I know there's some nerves involved for you here.
Absolutely.
We have reached our Grill the Guest segment, and we will open with Know Your Sport. We will test your knowledge of CSI softball. So
right.
The first one, Eric, I think it's a layup. We'll see if you know the answer to question number 1. 2019 marked how many consecutive CUNYAC titles for the CSI Dolphins as he goes to his notes?
Truth be told, I totally brought notes because I want to make sure I'm accurate. And again, like anything, I wish I had my coach calling in the play signal so I know what sign to look for. And
there's no one off camera helping you out here.
So how many championships have we had?
Consecutively.
I think I misspoke and said 8 earlier. I believe the correct answer would be 7.
That is correct, Eric. 1 for 1.
Put 1 down on my tracking sheet.
Okay. This is going to be a little bit tougher, but if you think about the format of the tournament, you should be able to get it.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Those 7 championships included how many consecutive postseason wins for the Dolphins? How many consecutive postseason wins? 7 championships. How many consecutive postseason wins?
5.
Well, they won 7 championships. So they're at least.
Oh no! So sorry.
Consecutive postseason wins. I should have said consecutive wins in the CUNYAC tournament.
12.
21. 3 wins per year.
Right.
So 21 consecutive postseason wins.
21. Okay, I see. I misunderstood the question. I will listen carefully. All right.
I maybe could have worded it a little bit better.
Nope, I was.
All right. Okay, this one. No way around this one. Here we go. The Dolphins set a program record in wins with 35 in what year? It's recent.
I have my notes, and I'm totally cheating because
You are totally cheating.
and that's what baseball players do. As we talked about the Astros earlier.
All right, well,
I
we're going to have to clock you. Dave, we're going to slap the clock up on the screen.
What year?
Yes.
2016.
One off, 2017. 35 wins in 2017.
Okay. All new records for Lowe's, by the way. Just so everyone knows.
Okay. With 399 career wins, this coach is the winningest coach in CSI softball history. Winningest head coach. That is correct. Okay. The original question was going to ask you how many wins, but I thought that might be a little tough.
That was tough. I knew it was over 350, so I would have been in ballpark.
Very impressive, and just missed seeing number 400 last year in the NCAA tournament. Close game, 3-2, heartbreaker.
That's a heartbreaker
I was in the dugout.
Reasons.
I was in the dugout during that game. Spirited comeback effort in the last inning fell just short, but a very entertaining game, and thank you for bringing me on that trip. Okay, last question. Patricia Riches entered last season the CSI career leader in batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage. In which of those three categories is she also the single-season all-time leader?
Let's say batting average.
That is correct. So Eric, 3 out of 5, certainly nothing to be ashamed of. I think that's a passing grade.
It's Hall of Fame record. It's Hall of Fame numbers.
It certainly is, by quite a big margin. So good job with that. No reason for nerves beyond that point. The rest of this is going to be fun, and I do promise we're going to talk Star Wars very little at the end of the show.
All right.
Cool. And you'll certainly be on that spin-off with myself and Aaron. I'm sure Charles will have to be a part of it as well.
Love to do it.
That panel is growing more and more with each coach's show now. Okay, so our next segment is the About You segment. We're going to ask you some questions about yourself, beginning with a word or phrase that describes the team's first impression of you.
Intimidating.
Intimidating, okay. Now, Dave and I mentioned this. Your headshot for CSIDolphins.com with the hat. Not only did you have the hat on, but you were mean mugging. That was an intimidating headshot, in my opinion. I don't know if you've seen it more than just once.
I'd be lying if I said that wasn't done purposefully.
Okay.
But if I had a chance to do it again, because it was also part of the student success coordinator piece, academic success coordinator piece, I would have done that a little differently. But
yeah. Definitely me mugging it in that photo. They even got me to smile, and that's. If you watch the show,
I think it scared Dave.
I saw the photo. I'm like, Dave, is this Eric? I was like, that is Eric.
That's the on-field persona.
It worked. Great. Okay. You've complimented my footwear choice many times, so I know you know shoes. What's your go-to pair of footwear?
Now, coaching or just?
We can have a game day and a casual pair.
Okay, so I have practice turfs, and I have 3 pairs of game turfs, depending on what we're going for.
You're already off to a good start. 3 pairs of game shoes.
Depending on what we have for our color combo for uniform, so it just depends.
All right, so you color coordinate. That's a good start.
You have to look good.
Yes.
You have to represent.
I definitely agree. You've played and worked in many different locations. Which one is your favorite?
Wow. Just because it was brand new, is the Yale Clubhouse. Just because it was brand spanking new, and hopefully when it works with John Tardy, get our clubhouse up to that level as well.
That would be very nice. All right. Word or phrase you would use to describe yourself? Not intimidating.
Passionate.
Passionate. So not intimidating. At times.
I already used that one. Can be.
Can be. All right. Your top,
that's why I said passionate.
Yes.
Passion comes out in different forms.
Top coaching accomplishment.
Winning the state championship with Arctic Blast in 2000. I want to say it's 14. That was my favorite.
Okay. Top playing accomplishment.
Hitting 4 home runs in the base. For St. Esmo in 1 game.
All right, so you didn't have to think about that one. We're going to get to that in a minute. I had some questions in this or that segment about that as well. Okay. Your favorite thing about Staten Island?
Food.
Didn't have to think about that one either.
Nope.
We very well at CSI.
I was trying to prep a little bit before for this last night, so I was like, what could he possibly ask? So
I got some help with that question, by the way.
you did.
I did. Kelsey Carey told me to ask that question.
No, that's my other some other comfort zone though.
Didn't stump him, Kelsey. Sorry. She thought you might be stumped by that one.
No,
Okay.
for sure.
I did not have one, but you did. What song did you sing at the Christmas party?
It was a duet.
A duet, right?
It was the other new one, Jackie Bruno, the soccer coach, female women's head soccer coach. I don't remember. I know it was.
That could come across very badly.
And that's fair. It was because Jackie picked it. Not because any other reason.
Not because of any
I
other
trust
Of course
her.
not.
I trust her knowledge, and it was a love song that was missed. Oh, baby. Oh no, it's a Christmas song. It's Cold Outside. The one that's very controversial. Yeah. So
Yes.
I remember.
The rewritten song, the rewrite was cringeworthy, to say the least.
Correct.
Yes, cringeworthy. Okay. Our next segment, this or that, I'll give you two options. You choose your preference. Okay.
I like multiple choice.
12 p.m. starts or 4 p.m. starts for your
12 p.m.
doubleheaders?
starts.
Didn't have to think about that one. I saw a lot of 4 p.m. starts in that schedule. All right. On a hat, the CSI logo with the letters or the dolphin?
Neither.
Neither. Which one would be your choice?
Dolphin.
Okay. Bigger challenge. First time coaching or first time playing? Coaching. More memorable, your 4 home run game or 4 state titles?
4 home runs.
Okay. All right, staying on the topic of the 4 home runs. Harder to achieve, 4 home runs in a game or 4.0 GPA?
4 home runs in a game.
Okay. Tacos or burritos? You at home, a very appropriate question.
These are tough. These are tougher than the.
That's a hard
the multiple
question.
choice. That was a hard
Tacos or
one.
burritos?
Can you call it? Is it a draw? I have to pick, right? I have to pick.
I think it's a good idea to pick.
Tacos.
He goes tacos. Okay. Staten Island or Manhattan?
Oh, seeing as we're moving to Jersey City. Staten Island.
Okay. All right. What requires greater patience, advising or coaching?
Coaching.
All right, Eric, that is it for our Grill the Guest segment. You made it through, and I think you looked pretty good in the process. Did not make a fool of yourself,
I appreciate that. That
was your
was
concern.
That was my main goal.
Okay.
Want to represent the program and the school and
Yes.
the right way.
Okay. Last question before
Keep
we
saying
sign
it's almost
off.
over, and I'm like, think I'm clear, and you always have
I mean
more.
it. I mean it. This is the Star Wars question.
Oh, okay.
So I want your thoughts. I would say condensed thoughts on the state of Star Wars right now.
So, again, this again, I'm old, so I'm old school, so I appreciate Lucas's initial, the initial start of it. 1, 2, and 3. Although I didn't like the Ewoks, but we can all talk about that a different day. But at the same time, I appreciate what's going on. But I know it's a great Disney thing, so I enjoy it for what it is. But I like the old school ones the best.
So they heard my opinion on my show with Andrew, but for your sake, I'll reiterate it one time quickly. I actually grew up right when the prequels came out. So episodes 1, 2, and 3, the 4th, 5th, and 6th movies.
With Natalie Portman and
Yes. So I grew up when those came out. But when I was younger, when I was in preschool, I was gifted the original trilogy on VHS. So I had actually seen those movies first. And looking back to my childhood, seeing episodes 1 and 2 that came out in, I think, 99 and 2002, I liked episode 1. I thought Darth Maul was really cool with his dual-sided.
He was cool. He was probably one of the best characters.
I dressed up for him as Halloween.
Of course you did.
Episode 2, I absolutely hated. Attack of the Clones, hated it.
So boring.
It was very boring. Yeah, the love story didn't really appeal to me.
Bad acting.
9 years old. Yeah, the whole monologue on sand didn't really do it for me. But I was 9 years old, so the love story wasn't really something on my radar yet. And episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, I liked.
That was decent too, especially when he was burning in the end. That was decent. They're decent.
Yes, the prequels, I hated 2. 1, as a kid, I liked it. Going back, it's a little dry. The original trilogy, I like all 3 movies. I'm in the minority that ranks them episode 5 number number 1, episode 6 with the Ewoks 2, and A New Hope 3.
Which is episode 5. That's
Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, sorry, not the prequel. I'm thinking order, not that.
Yes, all right.
3, 4, 5. No, you're right.
Spoiler alert, I Am Your Father. That's episode 5. And then the Disney trilogy, I enjoyed The Force Awakens. Absolutely despised The Last Jedi with just tremendous passion.
I didn't despise it, but I was disappointed. I enjoyed it for what it was.
I was unhappy.
What I didn't like about it was they didn't make Luke Skywalker as
Heroic
and almost defeated, and it took away from
Didn't work for
like
me.
how he was. He wasn't this Force anymore.
Yep.
The coolest one. I forget the one before that. I don't know why I'm so weird talking about this. Is when he was teleporting himself visually.
Yeah.
When Kylo Ren was going at him, that was super cool, by the way.
Well, you like that part. Inventing Force powers to me really didn't do it. Had he survived it, I would have been much more forgiving.
Yes, that's what I was disappointed that he died.
I would have
Why?
been much more forgiving if he lived.
No, I agree 100%.
Okay, and then Rise of Skywalker. Did you see the latest movie?
Yep.
Okay, and what'd you think?
For what it was, I enjoyed it. Just because I just wanted to see the conclusion of it.
Exactly.
But
That's the only reason I was there.
So I have one Star Wars question for you.
Yes.
Out of all, I think you answered it, but I want to say out of all the characters, or all the, whether it's Lucas or Disney or prequels or favorite character.
Vader. Easily.
Okay.
Easily. Just for whatever reason, I've always been drawn to Darth Vader. I don't know why. Whether it's the all black thing, the red lightsaber red was always my favorite color as a kid. And then when Darth Maul was introduced, I loved Darth Maul, but it was always Darth Vader. Always.
Boba Fett.
Good choice. I
Love
always.
Boba Fett because he was cool. He could do everything.
Yeah. Well, his death did make him look so imposing.
No, he started off being really cool, but then what's the fifth one again called?
Empire Strikes Back.
No.
Oh, the
after one.
Return of the Jedi.
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
Sorry. He looked like a fool.
Yeah.
Why'd you do that? He was
Yeah.
awesome. He was a badass.
Comedic death.
And it was like really.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's a conversation for our spin-off on Star Wars. Eric, we're up over an hour for this episode 6 of the Coaches Show, so we'll wrap things up here. Thank you for joining us.
thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
It's been great. It was a lot of fun. This has been episode 6 of the Coaches Show, live from Hobra, a taco joint on Forest Avenue, Staten Island. Tune in next month as Dave is joined by CSI baseball head coach Mike Morrow. That show will take place right here at Hobra. Until then, be sure to catch up on the latest episodes of the Coaches Show live on our CSI Sportsnet YouTube channel, and thanks for watching.